welcome back to another session of Beer and Books. Before we dive into the next chapter of Sammy Keys, Neve is going to write her response to last session's writing prompt, which was, if you could be have a superpower, what would it be and how would you use it? Without further ado, here's Neve.
So this is my writing. Global warming is real. Breaking news. I leave the living room trying to get away from the loud voice telling me the world is going to end. I leave trying to find the real world. But somehow global warming is the real world. I wish I could invent a superpower that could plant trees instantly. I would use the flick of my hand to grow a tree. People would be oohing and awing. Global warming wouldn't be the real world. It would be amazing.
Neve, I loved that idea of having superpowers to plant trees which could actively help to fight global warming. Brilliant. All right. I believe we are on chapter 4 of Sammy Keys and the Hotel Thief. Let's dive in. Grams was mad, all right. She made me eat cold fish and rice and wouldn't let me get up from the table until I'd eaten every single cold pea rolling around on my plate. Normally, I would have just slipped Dorito some of the fish and shoved the peas in my napkin, but Graham sat right across from me, and I knew from the way she wasn't saying anything that it was a bad time to get caught using Dorito as a garbage disposal. On top of that, I was choking down cold food she ate, every last crumb of a big piece of cake. When I finished my dinner and asked for some, all she said was, "It's time for you to go to bed." So I headed for the couch. The couch is actually pretty comfortable, and it beats sleeping on the floor or with Grams. I tried sleeping with Grams when I first moved in because I was having so many bad dreams. Trouble is, she snores so loud that I wasn't getting any sleep, so I finally started using the couch. I still get bad dreams once in a while, so sometimes I go in and listen to Graham snore. But most of the time, the couch and I get along just fine. And you might think that I'd have bad dreams after waving at the guy in the Heavenly Hotel and running into Officer Borsch, but I didn't. I slept like a log. I might have even snored. In the morning when I woke up, I thought about everything that had happened and decided there was no way the guy at the Heavenly Hotel could know who I was. With those binoculars in front of my face and my hair pulled back in a ponytail like it was, I could have been anyone. He might even have thought that I was an old person. I mean, if he knew anything about Grams's building, that's what he'd think. So there I was, lying on the couch, feeling pretty good when the phone rings. Grams comes scooting out of her room in her robe and slippers and picks it up, and I can tell from the way she's talking that it's Lady Lana on the other end. So much for feeling good. After about 5 minutes of keeping her voice down, Grams covers up the phone and says, "Samantha, it's your mother. She'd really like to talk to you." Normally I would have given Grams an argument, but seeing how I'd upset her so much the night before, I just went into the kitchen and took the phone. Lady Lana starts gushing about how much she loves me and misses me and how she can't wait to see me again. But she's so close to landing a part-time in a major motion picture a part in a major motion picture, and she has to stay just a little while longer. And the whole time she's talking, I'm thinking that it's been over a year since she dumped me with Grams, and she told me she'd be back soon. I really wanted to hang up on her like I usually do, but that upsets Grams. So I just stood there counting the loops in the phone cord, not saying much. When Lady Lana finally got off the phone, I went back to the couch and sat with the blanket wrapped all around me. Grams sits beside me and says real quiet, "I'm sorry about last night." "Me too," I said. After a minute, she sighs. You know your mother means well. I just want to forget about her, okay? Grams is quiet for a little while, then perks up and says, Say, it's your first day of junior high school. How about French toast for breakfast? I say, sure. And while I'm getting ready for school, Grams makes French toast out of pound cake. It was the best French toast I've ever had, and by the time I left for school, I'd forgotten all about Lady Lana's phone call. Well, almost, anyway. Marissa was already waiting at the top of the school steps. I waved at her and ran up to meet her. She pulls me aside and whispers, This place is a zoo. I can't believe how many people are here. We stand there a minute watching everyone talking and laughing and moving like they know where they're going. Finally, I look at Marissa and say, Wow, I know, and I don't see anybody I recognize. Do you? I shake my head. Maybe we should go find our homeroom. We pull out our schedules and Marissa says, B2. I don't even remember where the B block is. Do you? I didn't. Everything looked completely different when we'd come down to check it out on our own. There hadn't been any people. So we walked around in circles for a while, and finally I said, I haven't got a clue. Let's just ask someone, okay? Out of all the people walking around William Rose Junior High School that day, Marissa picks a girl with hair the color of fire and says, Let's go ask her. The girl looked like an 8th grader, and from the way she was talking with the guy standing next to her, she seemed real comfortable being in a tidal wave of students. So Marissa was right. She probably knew exactly where B2 was. I just would never have picked her because she looked, well, snotty. Partly it was the color she'd dyed her hair. Partly it was the earrings. She had 5 studs in each ear and a group of rings looped over the tops. Mostly, though, it was the way she looked at us when we walked over, like we were kicking sand in her corner of the beach. I almost grabbed Marissa and suggested we find someone else, but before I knew it, she was saying, Excuse me, do either of you know where B2 is? At first, Firehead just snubs us, but then she notices my shoes and she laughs. High tops? What are you? Straight from elementary school? I stare at her a minute and can feel my face getting really hot. How can someone who decorates her ears like a Christmas tree have the nerve to make fun of my high tops? And I'm about to tell her to keep her snotty thoughts to herself when the guy she's standing next to says, Hey, aren't you Brendan McKenzie's cousin? Marissa smiles at him. Yeah, I am. Who are you? I'm Taylor Briggs. My brother and him are best friends. You don't remember me? I was at his pool party this summer. Marissa blinks a bit, then says, Sorry, there were so many people there. Oh, that's all right. He takes her schedule and says, What room are you looking for? B2. It's our homeroom. Now, while Taylor's talking to Marissa, Firehead's getting real roasty around the collar, and when he's done telling us how to get to B2, she glares at us, then throws her nose in the air and goes back to talking to Taylor. When we're far enough away, I say, Wow, she was scary. Marissa laughs. You're not kidding. And we hurry off to find B2. Our homeroom teacher, Mrs. Ambler, was already in the classroom rearranging things on her desk. The bell rings and she looks up at the clock, then smiles at us and says, We still have one more bell. Go ahead and find yourselves a seat. We find a couple of seats near the back, and I say to Marissa, I've been wanting to tell you about what happened yesterday. Marissa checks out the people around her. Oh, yeah? What? Kids are piling into the classroom, and since I don't want anyone else to hear, I whisper, the Heavenly Hotel? Just then, the tardy bell rings, and Mrs. Ambler calls, Find a desk. You'll have assigned seats by the end of the week, but for now, just sit where you'd like. So we're looking around at everyone scrambling for a seat near the back, when who walks in the door? Firehead. I nudge Marissa. Look! At first, I thought she was there to deliver a message or something, but when she sits at a desk kitty corner from me, it hits me. She's no snot-nosed 8th grader. She's a snot-nosed 7th grader. I must have been staring because she turns around and says, "What are you looking at?" Then she looks at my shoes and says, "You freak." Mrs. Ambler calls, "Settle down, class. Let's begin." And as she's welcoming us to our first day of junior high school, explaining the rules for homeroom, Firehead leans back and says, "Taylor says you look like a 4th grader." Now, maybe I'm kind of skinny and maybe I don't wear makeup or get all decked out to go to school, but there's no way I look like I'm in the 4th grade. Mrs. Ambler asks the class to stand so we can pledge to the flag. So I stand up and say, bug off, would ya?" Firehead pulls a face like, "Oh, I'm so scared," and then leans over again and says, "What you gonna do? Kick me with a high top?" She puts her hand in front of her mouth. "Ooh, I'm petrified." I roll my eyes and keep on pledging, but I'm thinking, what's your problem? Now, Firehead's not saying the pledge. She's got her hand on her heart, but her eye on me. And when we're just about done, she leans back and says, "Oh, you say the pledge so good. Did you spend the whole summer practicing?" Mrs. Ambler looks straight at her. "Young lady, what is your name?" Firehead looks around a bit, then points to herself and asks, "Me?" Mrs. Ambler snaps, "Yes, you." She gives her an innocent little look. Heather Acosta." "Well, Miss Acosta, maybe your elementary school teachers allowed you to talk during the pledge, but you're in junior high school now, and we expect a degree of maturity from you. I'd like to try it again, only this time I'd like you to come up here and lead us." All of a sudden, homeroom is dead quiet, and while everyone's busy thinking there's no way they're ever going to talk during the pledge in Mrs. Ambler's class, Heather's eyes move from side to side like she doesn't quite believe what's happening to her. Finally, she moves to the front of the class, and by the time she's done leading the pledge, her face is as red as her hair. And when she gets back to her chair, she gives me the wickedest evil eye I've ever seen. And I can tell she's thinking that somehow this is all my fault. I can also tell that Heather Acosta is going to find a way to get me back, and when she does, it'll be in spades. All right, that concludes chapter 4. Before we sign off for the night, I will give you another writing prompt to consider. These, of course, are always optional. This time, if you could have any job you want, whether it's a job that you've currently heard of or a job that you could make up, describe what that job would be and what that would mean to you and what impact it would have. All right, I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Have a good night, everybody.